I call Jamie Greene. No more than 4 minutes, please.
Deputy Presiding Officer, if you want to be really well known, go and live in the most solitary place on earth, on an island where there are no secrets. I'm paraphrasing the words of the famous travel writer Henry Morton. Scotland is a unique part of the UK in that we host the majority of our island communities which contribute to our economy, heritage and culture. Orkney and the Shetland Islands are unique in the Scottish landscape too. Now, secrets there may not be, but there is always one thing the local people will want to talk about, and that's ferries. Now, whilst we celebrate the unique contribution that these communities make to life in Scotland, let's not forget the unique challenges that they face too. The issue of transportation to and from the mainland, as well as inter-island travel, is about much more than a blether over a bitter in the bothy. The debate today has illustrated quite well the social and economic importance of island connectivity. Getting from A to B affects tourism and inward migration, repopulation, access to economic markets, access to education, health and social care. And how we approach ferry infrastructure and funding is arguably the most striking part of how we look after our islands. Now, the motion today is an important one because it asks the Scottish Government for greater transparency on its plans for, in its own words, fair funding. The Scottish Government committed to the principle of fair funding. However, very little detail has been given since this position was outlined in their Empowering Scotland's Island Communities document 3 years ago. My colleague Jamie Halcrow-Johnson said this is not simply about transport either. This is about preservation and indeed the cultivation of these diverse communities on our islands. We don't often talk about the importance of inter-island trading, but we know that if it's hampered and if they don't have a way to transport goods and people from one to another, Tom Mason illustrated this well when he talked about the potential impact of reducing inter-island services. Deputy Presiding Officer, in summing up, I like to include constructive contributions from across the chamber in these debates, and I did reserve a page in my speech for constructive SNP contributions. Members will see that it speaks for itself today. Nothing but excuse after excuse after excuse. Deputy Presiding Officer, I know that as a member for the West of Scotland region, I know the enormous difficulties that island residents face when services are disrupted, which is why we've added specific wording to this motion around the fact that these ferry services are lifeline links. It seems like an obvious statement to make, but alongside aviation, ferries remain the vital connector. Despite being paramount to the future of our island communities, Scotland ferries are suffering from a severe lack of direction. And this was noted by Audit Scotland, who recently said that to date there is no Scotland-wide ferries strategy. Now, transparency is critical here, which is the basis of the Lib Dem motion. The Scottish Government should lay out its proposals both for the future structuring of Scottish ferry routes, but also its funding. Now, in 2016, Transport... I'm in my last seconds. You can perhaps respond to that in your summing up. Now, in 2016, Transport Scotland announced a stag-style report into internal ferries. To my knowledge, no conclusions have been publicly released. Perhaps the Minister can explain why. Island residents, ferry operators themselves and businesses deserve to have clarity over their future so they can plan ahead. Local authorities, already challenged by budgets, also require certainty. We share OIC and SIC's concerns. The Scottish Government has made public commitments over ferry funding. The Lib Dem motion asks them to set out how it intends to honour those commitments. We support that motion. We await the Government's response with bated breath.